The presidential couple travels to Europe for a private trip for the first time in 2 years. President Biya and wife Chantal took off from the Yaoundé Simalen International Airport this Sunday with some close aids. Transport unions suspend planned strike action after brokering a deal with the Minister of Labour and Social Security last night. Negotiations continue Monday. What is your perception of corruption? Efforts in preventing and combating the phenomenon came under scrutiny during activities to mark the 5th African Day to Fight Corruption. CONAC's president, Dr. Masigam, says it takes both individual and collective endeavor. Details and more in this edition of the 7:30 News. Stay tuned.
Malgré nos efforts,
despite our efforts, COVID-19 plunged many families into mourning and seriously hampered the functioning of our economy and society.
Welcome back. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Paul Biya, accompanied by his wife, Mrs. Chantal Biya, left Yaoundé late this morning, 11th July 2021, for a short and private stay in Europe. The head of state's official delegation comprises Samuel Mvondo Ayolo, Minister Director of the Civil Cabinet of the Presidency of the Republic, Rear Admiral Joseph Fuda, Special Advisor of the President of the Republic, Mr. Simon Pierre Bikele, Chief of State Protocol. It is signed the Minister Director of the Civil Cabinet, Samuel Mvondo Ayolo. Paul has left the country this afternoon for a private visit. Paul and Chantal Biya were seen off at the Yaoundé Simalen International Airport by a galaxy of state authorities and dance groups. It is the first time the president and his wife are traveling out of the country for close to 2 years. Chief Unity Palace correspondent Ashin Yenti picks up that story.
It is pretty much an event. These CPDM enthusiasts and presidential followers have not done this in the last 2 years, exactly 20 months since the presidential couple last traveled out of the country. This Sunday, July 11, 2021 is another day. The dignitaries are already in place just before the impressive presidential motorcade pulls over in front of the presidential lounge. Today there will be no handshakes. COVID-19 barrier measures are still in force. Just a few casual words and a bow will do from Senate President Marcel Nyat-Njifendi, House Speaker Kawai Yege Jibril, Prime Minister Joseph Diongute, Minister of State, Secretary General of the Presidency Ferdinand Ngongo, Minister, Director of the Civil Cabinet Samuel Mvondo Ayolo, Secretary General of the CPDM Central Committee Jean Kwete, the Ministers, Deputy Secretaries General of the Presidency Elong Paul and Muhammadu Mustafa, and a host of administrative and security officials. Paul Biya would just have time to briefly confer with the Prime Minister, head of government, who is at the center of the fight against COVID-19. The Minister of State, Secretary General of the Presidency, who stays back to look after the House. He also has a word with the Minister, Director of the Civil Cabinet. At the same time, in a nearby room, First Lady Chantal Biya has a good time with the spouses of her husband's close collaborators who are here to wish her journey mercies. With these traditional formalities, the couple then strides the red carpet, acknowledging dignitaries again, both civilian and military, before getting into the belly of the Boeing 767-200 aircraft. The plane ensures final maneuvers before getting airborne. Inside are Paul and Chantal Biya en route to a private sojourn.
On to this headline news, the planned strike organized by Transporters Union in Cameroon that was to take place tomorrow, Monday, 12, 2021, nationwide, has been suspended by members of the union. The suspension comes after 3 days of negotiation with the Minister of Labour and Social Security that ended last night. Minister Gregoire Owona personally committed himself to meet with his colleagues of finance and transport ministries to seek a definite solution that will address the worries of transporters. Negotiations will continue from July 13, 2021, as you tell us, Constantine Baum.
This come together had earlier met for 2 days with no headway. This Day 3 meeting on instructions from the Prime Minister was chaired by the Minister of Labour and Social Security in the presence of representatives of the Ministries of Finance and Transport to examine the plight of the National Union of Public Transporters.
Is the increase of the rate of the insurance for taxis from 40,000 to 66,000. You can see that it's about 50-something% increase. The urban buses, those buses that ply Bonabere, Marché Central, they are buses that carry people for 200, but they pay the same insurances with the same buses that ply Bafoussam, Limbe, Yaoundé.
At the end of the fruitful discussions, Labour and Social Security Minister committed himself to work with his colleagues of the concerned ministries to carefully examine the 5 points raised. This led to the suspension of the planned strike action nationwide that was scheduled for Monday, July 13.
We have had some appeasement. A certain commission will be put in place that will try to negotiate and the insurance and the Minister of Finance to see if they can cut down that rate from the taxes.
The suspension of the strike action gives way for the continuation of negotiations from July 13, 2021, as the leaders will continue concerting for tripartite solutions.
The 5th African Anti-Corruption Day is being observed July 11th under the theme Regional Economic Communities, Critical Actors into the Implementation of the African Union Convention on Combating and Preventing Corruption. This year's edition is an opportunity to evaluate the path covered in the fight against corruption in Cameroon. Rita Makang tells us more.
The 5th African Anti-Corruption Day is an occasion for officials in the fight against the cankerworm in Cameroon to take stock of its evolution and come up with an appraisal of the anti-corruption national strategy launched in 2011.
We have done something which is important by writing a booklet for that, and we entitled the booklet the Positive Decade of the fight against corruption in Cameroon. It is interesting to know that we are improving.
Despite the work done to definitely deal with the ill, there are still some areas of resistance.
Some delegates, regional delegates, contribute, but others don't take it seriously. And it means that there is some resistances for the fight against corruption. So we are calling the attention of all Cameroonians that we are in the same boat, and if we sink, all of us will sink.
The fight against corruption is both an individual and collective endeavor.
The government of Cameroon, in partnership with the United Nations Population Fund, has donated farm input to over 20 youths and women's association in the Mbam and the Nobu division of the Center region as part of celebrations marking this year's World Population Day. Under the slogan, "Rights and choices are the answer. Whether baby boom or bust, the solution lies in prioritizing the reproductive health and rights." The occasion was presided over by the SDO of Mbam and Nobu, Absalom Mononowolua, representing the Minister of the Economy in the presence of the resident representative of the United Nations Population Fund in Cameroon, in Batolo Hussein. Gerard Nanji Eyambe is just back from Bafia. His report.
The COVID-19 pandemic has had a serious impact on the healthcare systems, especially in the area of sexual and reproductive health, even as the United Nations Population Fund has been accompanying the government to improve the maternal health in the country during the last 50 years.
By ending preventable maternal death, to end gender-based violence and harmful practices, and also to end unmet need for family planning.
In order to ameliorate the living conditions of the over 70,000 inhabitants of Bafia and its environs, the government, during the celebration of the World Population Day, handed over farm inputs to some youth and women's associations.
Most of our population were affected by this pandemic. The government has given to them important tools to improve on the production. With this production, they will be able to feed the population of the division and Cameroon in general. They will be able to have means to take care of their expenses when they are sick.
According to statistics from the United Nations Populations Fund, the global population reached 7 billion in 2011, with the figures expected to hit around 8.5 billion by 2030.
A two-day excursion for former street children organized by the Ministry of Social Affairs has ended in Yaoundé, with the children showcasing their talent in dance, drama and artwork. The excursion was an opportunity for the teenagers who were taken off the streets a year ago and placed at the Cameroonian Institute at Betamba to socialize with one another. Social Affairs Minister Pauline Irengene chaired the event with focus on evaluating the integration process of these children, as you tell us, Rainatu Sali.
It appears like a simple sketch, but it is a translation of their real-life experiences at the Cameroonian Children's Institute of Betamba. Formerly street children, but today trained to showcase what was hitherto hidden in them through drama, dance and artwork at the end of a two-day excursion in Yaoundé.
I'm doing electricity, and in electricity I learned how to do many stuff and how to arrange houses. Seriously, it was very nice because the street is not really nice.
They were taken off the street 1 year ago and placed at the Institute by the Ministry of Social Affairs for proper follow-up and reintegration. The excursion gives room for the children to socialize and for the Ministry to assess their re-socialization process.
We are proud to see that the children has done a lot of progress. They had shown us what they had learned so far. It's not finished. They still have a few months to go. Some of them will probably come out from the center because of the age, because they have learned something. It's been very successful as far as we're concerned.
A show of gratitude to the Ministry of Social Affairs by the children as they commit to face their studies in mechanics, electricity, building and many other industrial fields.
Youths of the North region have been encouraged to make use of services offered by the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Civic Education to empower themselves economically and create jobs. The call was made by the Minister of Youth Affairs and Civic Education, Mununa Futshu, while visiting the North region. The minister also used the visit to inspect work on the site for the construction of a multi-purpose youth empowerment center in Lagdo and equally evaluated projects of some beneficiaries of the 3-year special youth plan. Tony Nanyongo is our lady on the beat from Garwa.
In Jalingo, Garwa 3 subdivision, 16 young men and women involved in farming are among the beneficiaries of the 3-year special youth plan. Visiting their project site, which is one out of the about 15 others in the north, the Minister of Youth Affairs and Civic Education observed the commitment of the beneficiaries. About 430 youths in the north region have benefited from different forms of support, estimated at 900 million CFA francs. While visiting a driving school that works in partnership with the ministry to train commercial motorbike riders, the minister drew the youth's attention to the opportunities open to them as holders of the biometric card.
I'm happy that this center offered this opportunity to young people.
Minister Mununa Futso, at the start of his tour of project sites in the north region, also went to Lagdo, where a multi-purpose youth center is under construction. He instructed those in charge to speed up work and respect the terms of the contract so that youths of the locality can begin benefiting from the services.
Cameroon's 8th contingent to take up peacekeeping operations with the United Nations Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission in the Central African Republic, MINUSCA, has been declared ready to begin field work. A team of experts from the United Nations Military Performance and Evaluation Task Force, headed by Lieutenant Colonel Sanjay Jung, has concluded a 5-day visit of the contingent. This follows its completion of 3 months of intensive training at the Mochebum Pre-Deployment Center.
1,000 awaiting deployment are from the infantry battalion, consisting of land, air and marine soldiers, as well as from the of gendarmes. For a period of 90 days, they have chiseled their skills in combat and rescue operations, crowd control and public disturbance, the respect of the UN Code of Conduct, as well as a deeper understanding of the scope and peculiarities of their CAR peacekeeping mission. In exercising, replicating immersions into varied combat scenarios, the contingent demonstrated their responses and agile actions to a team of 5 UN experts come from New York to assess their readiness for deep field operations. An evaluation steeped in impressive adjectives from the head of the visiting UN delegation, Lieutenant Colonel Sunjai Jung, who praised the combat and response style of the purely Cameroonian-trained soldiers and strict respect of international norms.
Cameroon's ambassador to Tunisia has presented his letters of credence to the Tunisian president. Samuel Jobo presented his document to President Kais Saied at the presidential palace in Tunisian capital Tunis to become Cameroon's ambassador. Extraordinary and plenipotentiary in is Cameroon's first commercial partner in North Africa, Tunisia. Okier Johnson has been re-elected as national president of the Catholic Men Association for a 3-year mandate. The new executive bureau was installed today during the close of the 3-day elective congress in Yaoundé. The apostolic nuncio to Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea has called on the new exco to unite and be peace advocates. Emanuela Vemnoi reports.
The anthem of St. Joseph resounding at the Yaoundé Sports Complex as members of the Catholic Men Association engaged to emulate the man of honor and dignity they have always followed. Their 6th Executive Congress ends here with the election and installation of these over 20 National Bureau members for a 3-year mandate.
That CMA should be catalyst of peace. That is our first plan of action. Secondly, is to increase our spirituality.
It has been 3 days of exchange on how to fortify their spiritual, physical, as well as moral growth, with prayers also said for peace in Cameroon and for an end to the health pandemic.
They should continue to be together to pray for the service of the others with simplicity, joy, and peace.
All these boys in the bushes are children of some of the Catholic men. They should be able to educate their brothers, their children, to see that peace is an urgent necessity.
Like their patron saint, St. Joseph the Worker, these men have in their different ways been working for the growth of the gospel in Cameroon.
We are committing ourselves to continue praying for long-lasting peace in this country.
From 20 dioceses, they now return filled with the Holy Spirit and more ready to give in their best in God's vineyard.
And in a related development, Reverend Dr. Joseph G. Kong is the new pastor of the Tuger Baptist Church here in Yaoundé. He was inducted today in the nation's capital by members of the Tuger Field Conference of Churches of the Cameroon Baptist Convention during a solemn service. Victor Siga profiles the new shepherd in the following report.
A solemn mass to celebrate a man of God, faithful from far and near, joined members of the Yaoundé Field Conference of Churches for the induction of the new shepherd of the Tukebe Baptist Church in Yaoundé. Reverend Dr. Joseph G. Kong's love for gospel has come true, as it has always prevailed over his personal ambitions.
We need to stand and preach the truth in love to everyone. My prayer is that everybody will be responsible in the assignment God has given to them, and we all will be able to move the church in God's direction.
The new shepherd has previously worked as youth pastor with special assignment to Ezeka between 2004 and 2005. In 2006, his ability to preach in French and English will make him the lone pastor of the same parish. Reverend Dr. Joseph Jikong is a native of Jato village, Noir subdivision, in the northwest region. The father of 4 is counting on the collaboration of all to overcome the challenges ahead of him.
Road users increasingly respect the highway code in the Yaoundé-Bafia Road, especially when road safety units are on the field. The head of the Bravo detachment, Major Hans Contra Ngamen Sile, says in the absence of controls, some road users drive at top speed, violating speed limit. Elvis Teke was there, his report.
An accident-free weekend on the Yaoundé-Bafoussam Highway. The Road Safety Task Force credits itself for instilling a sense of discipline in the minds of road users who now respect the highway code for the most part. The commander of the detachment from Yaoundé to Bafia, Major Hans Gotra Ngame Nsile, says despite strides made over speeding, driving worn-out tires, and passengers not wearing seat belts remain worrying. Offenders either pay the penalty on the spot or are dragged to court. The quest to keep the roads safe from accidents has also been challenged by commuters who attempt to corrupt or intimidate officers. Others respect the highway code only when the road safety team is on the spot. According to Major Ngame, the gendarmerie has devised strategies to ensure that every road user complies or is sanctioned by the law.
I urge you once again to put on your face masks, to wash your hands regularly, and to consult a physician or any other health personnel if you notice any symptoms. This is the only way to save lives and to curb the spread of the virus.
The mass vaccination campaign against COVID-19 that was to end today has been extended to Friday, July 16 by the Minister of Public Health. In the BMRC Health District, health personnel there have been collaborating with administrative and municipal authorities in the district for a smooth vaccination campaign. For more, let's get in touch with Baldwin Sama and his guest, Ako Jane at the Public Health Emergency Operations Center. Hello, Baldwin. Good evening.
Good evening to you, Gladys Tatea. We are going to discuss with our guest, Ako Jane, for the BMRC Health District, what collaboration they had with municipal and administrative authorities during this mass vaccination campaign for them to have been able to succeed vaccinating more Cameroonians. Good evening to you, Ako Jane.
Good evening, Badri.
Explain to us, how was the collaboration like with municipal and administrative authorities throughout these 5 days that we had this mass vaccination, especially at the level of the BMRC Health District?
Well, seeing the difficulties we faced on the field, we had a series of meetings with the municipal authorities, the traditional authorities, presidents of different associations, in order to sensitize the population, to maximize the outcome of the vaccine. So we sent letters, appeal letters to the different authorities for them to vehiculate the message back to their geographical areas in order to facilitate the vaccination campaign.
And with this experience, do you intend to continue this work with this collaboration with these authorities, future vaccination campaigns in your health districts?
Yes, we intend to.
Thank you so much, Ako Jane, for the BMRC Health Districts. You see the key role played by municipal authorities, the collaboration that existed between them and the BMRC Health Districts during these 5 days that we had this massive vaccination campaign against the coronavirus, not only in Cameroon in general, but especially at the BMRC Health District. Back to you, Gladys Tatea.
Thank you, Baldwin Sama, for those important messages. And we continue with this obituary. The remains of the former Procurator General at the Supreme Court, Martin Rissouk Amulong, have been laid to rest in his village Dang near Bafia Center region. In a ceremony that preceded his burial, the 82-year-old super-scale magistrate was lauded for his contribution in building a solid judiciary. He was posthumously elevated to the dignity of Grand Cordon of the Cameroon Order of Merit by the head of state's representative, Justice Minister Laurent Isso. Quinta Rita Edang has more.
The caliber of mourners at the funeral of Martin Rissouk Amulong, former Procureur General of the Supreme Court, reflected the rich human values he incarnated. This explains the presence of Justice Minister Laurent Esso, personal representative of the head of state, top government officials and members of the different arms of the judiciary, who accompanied the family to bid him farewell.
His heart was always open, and it was very, very painful for the Bafia people because he has organized them. He has been pushing up many projects. He has been enhancing solidarity.
Describing the fallen legal hero as an incorruptible judge, the Procureur General of the Supreme Court, Luc Jodo, and other colleagues attested his determination to ensure justice for all.
He goes down on record as one of the purest magistrates, one of the most just persons who administered the law in this country.
The presiding man of God at the religious service said Martin Rissouk Amulong was a peacemaker. He was posthumously elevated to the dignity of Grand Cordon of the Cameroon Order of Merit by the head of state's representative.
And may his soul rest in peace. Over in the West region, some traditional rulers there whose ancestors lost certain cultural objects of fundamental significance during the colonial era are calling for their restitution. The advocates argue that the return of artifacts to their rightful owners will boost tourism, as Kelvin Nembo reports.
The West region has played host to several meetings relating to debates on the restitution of cultural property taken by colonial authorities or acquired through other unjust means. The most recent took place at the Bangwa Chiefdom, where custodians of tradition assembled to seek ways on how to better implement the major resolutions arrived at during their third international conference on the subject held in Bangwa last May. The project for the repatriation of arts and cultural objects taken during the colonial era is the initiative of one NGO, Cameroon House, based in Germany, with the support of the Hanover and Brunswick museums, where thousands of Cameroonian cultural objects are found.
Understanding the phenomenon of restitution of property resulting from colonial context implies questioning the place and the role that the traditional chiefdom can play.
In 2022, everything being equal, traditional rulers from Cameroon will take part in a major exhibition of colonial artifacts in Berlin, Germany. They will have the opportunity to identify artifacts that could be repatriated to Cameroon. The cultural guarantors will equally have to plead for the institutionalization of the Cameroon House in Germany.
Now let's talk sports now. Bafia Women's Volleyball Evolution are this year's National Volleyball Championship winners. They beat FAB 3-2 after both teams reached the tie break, with Bafia Volleyball tallying 15 points against 9 for the girls of FAB. The victory means Bafia will represent Cameroon in the Continental Championship in the women's category. Romeo Kenny watched the final and now reports.
Complete Bafia Volleyball Evolution emerges winners of the National Volleyball Championship in the women's final. 3-2 against last year's champions. FAB was sufficient to seal a spot for continental tournament following a tie-break score of 15-9.
Because I win FAB, I'm very satisfied because my player play fine.
The sets were even from start, with Bafia Evolution team narrowly winning the first two sets, 30-28 and 25-21. FAB avenged during the third and fourth attempt, maximizing on blocks and tips to spike 25-17 and 26-24. The tiebreak was more decisive, with Bafia team banking on pancakes, stuffed blocks and cover serves to make a difference. At final whistle, it was 3 sets for Bafia Evolution and 2 for the team of Army and Police. FAB.
Curtains have been drawn on the 4th edition of the cyclotourism race organized by the French Embassy in Cameroon. The cyclists, amongst whom the French ambassador to Cameroon, His Excellency Christophe Guilou, covered the ultimate lap between Gulmakong and Bolova this Sunday. They were received upon arrival at the Nkovo ceremonial ground by Sports and Physical Education Minister, Professor Narcisse Mwele Kombi. Details with Clarence Aze.
The second lap of this 4th edition of the cyclotourism race covered a distance of 50 kilometers between Mayomel Sala and Samelima. Just like during the first lap, the over 50 professional and amateur cyclists taking part in the excursion came in contact with the rich touristic and cultural attractions of the Jai and Lobo division. Far from the touristic aspect, Cameroonian cyclists see the competition as a glimmer of hope for the development of the discipline.
We have to put more effort to help the young talents to grow and make Cameroon a cycling nation in Africa.
Ambassador Christophe Guilou, who is so passionate about cycling, says he wants to groom many young Cameroonians through the initiative.
This was my main objective when I started this project. I say, let's try to help these young Cameroonians to get involved into biking, cyclism.
Their arrival at the Samelima ceremonial ground was characterized by euphoria. Minister Narcisse Mwele Kombi, members of the elites of the town and a cross-section of the population came out to cheer the cyclists. The caravan, through its social wing known as Le Marian, has also been extending its goodwill gesture to the needy. A good quantity of didactic materials and foodstuffs have been offered to the Samelima diocese and to children in the town. The 4th edition of the cyclotourism ends Sunday with a lap from Gulmakong to Ebolova.
And the 7:30 news equally draws the curtains on this edition of the news. Thanks for watching. You've been the company of Atta Badine Umar at 8:30 for le 20h30. I'll be here tomorrow, God willing. Good night.
I urge you once again to put on your face masks, to wash your hands regularly, and to consult a physician or any other health personnel if you notice any symptoms. This is the only way to save lives and to curb the spread of the virus.
CRTV News, ici, toute l'info.